2. Compassionate Leave for Mr. Khan. New Delhi, India, June 8th to the 14th. "You have taken a lot of leave already this year, Mr. Khan," said the head of the department. He was not enjoying the heat wave in the Indian capital, and he had to spend far too much of his time dealing with applications for time off from staff who usually did not deserve it. They also generally had ingenious and less than candid reasons for asking for all this free time. "Besides, Mr. Khan, there is a lot of work coming in and we need your linguistic skills." He leant back in his chair and looked belligerently at the broken air conditioner jammed against the window. Mr. Khan, he reflected, looked every inch a prince, courtly, very tall, muscular and dignified as well. But after all, "I know, sir, but you know too that I have always done my duty." The Mirza Ilyas Khan knew that he had to go through this bureaucratic palaver. It wasn't as if he really needed a job, he could live without it. But having been brought up knowing several languages, in a family with the equivalent of the Western work ethic and an intense sense of duty, he could not, at nearly 50 years of age, change his approach to life, nor did he want to. It had served him well. So he worked where he could be useful. "Of course, I do realize that family affairs must be attended to," said the director, thinking, although he did not say so, that the Mirza was indispensable to the department. Coming from forebears in Afghanistan and Turkestan, his connections and inside knowledge were international and important. This was in addition to his linguistic abilities. These things still counted for a great deal in the East. They probably always would, the director reflected. After all, he was not exactly a peasant himself. Mind you, India was a democratic and free country, but still. "And, of course, we do appreciate your dedication to your work, Mr. Khan." "Thank you, Shri Director. Of course, Director, you will have noted that I have, in fact, had less than half the time off that anyone else has had. And mine is, I assure you, a serious and delicate family problem. I am fully prepared to work my forthcoming holiday period, all of it, if necessary, in lieu." "That will not be necessary, Mr. Khan, though we shall expect you to do whatever extra is involved in the upcoming workload of this department. I shall allow you the required time off on this occasion then, but please do try to abate your demands upon our patients in future." After all, one had to keep some kind of rein on the staff. The Mirza cleared his throat. "Sir, I am most grateful. You can have no idea how much your generosity means to me in this vital matter." The director looked up at him, surprised at the intensity of the Mirza's words. Something really was worrying Khan. He began to feel sympathy for this slightly mysterious man. Mr. Khan came into the office, worked hard and well, and went away again, day after day, year after year. He was a man of culture, of education, from a world that the director only dimly perceived. A world which somehow included poetry and horse racing, ancient warriors and kings, courts and nobles of the old days. He stood up. "That's settled then. But you can only have from next Wednesday morning until the Friday afternoon. 2.5 days. You will not be paid, and I can't yet say whether it will affect your pension entitlement." "Thank you, sir." The Mirza bowed, hand on heart, and left. It was Thursday. That left the Mirza a little time to settle a few small affairs. Over the weekend, he went to inspect the family property near Delhi. He was the last trustee of the estate to reside there, and his thoughts were solemn as he walked among the tombs of his ancestors who had lived and died in India. And there were other things to consider. He made his will, and spent more time than usual with his wife Salima and son Amin Jan, telling them tales of his ancestors, of chivalry and bravery, of victory and defeat, and of his own youth. The Mirza's family had settled in India following the last of the many Mongol and Afghan conquests before the British took over. His own life, as well as being rooted in the ancient traditions, was influenced by a public school education, by service in the army, and by his fame as a considerable chess player, an athlete, and a crack shot. He spent much of the weekend with his rifle at the club range. He was preparing, as all the members knew, for the Interdepartmental Shooting Championship. On the Monday, he went to the Air India offices in New Delhi to get his ticket. The price was 2,866 rupees, $300, nearly 3 years' income for an average Afghan. The weekly flight at this time of year left Delhi Airport at 08:25 on Wednesday, flight IC451. It returned on Friday, leaving at 09:25, arriving in the Indian capital just after midday. The Afghan tourist visa, valid for a week, was no problem. Karmal's government liked to encourage Indian citizens as a counter to the Pakistanis next door. It was even said that the Afghan communist chief had once tried to pressure Mrs. Gandhi into a visit, expressing the hope that a friendship between India and Afghanistan would make Pakistan like meat in a sandwich. "You're not a journalist?" the clerk at the Afghan visa office asked. "Oh, no." "Good. We don't let them in. They only write lies. But you are welcome. I'm glad you are not going to cause trouble." 3 photographs, $7, and he had his visa. On Tuesday, the Mirza sat at his desk, looking at documents and rows of figures, at letters and files, at memos and printouts. He got through his work, but he thought of Aslam Jan. 15 years old, and he was dead. The child of relatives of both his father and mother, the same blood as his, the same genes. The boy's parents were dead too, murdered, it was said, and God alone knew who else. He had heard about Aslam through a diplomat in Delhi, who had received a letter via the diplomatic bag from someone in Afghanistan. All it had said was, "Mirza, your cousin Aslam Jan, an orphan, has been killed by order of the enemy." In Persian, the message contained only 15 words, one for each of Aslam's years.